Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down for my review of Psychonauts 2. I played this on the Xbox Series X, where the only next-gen version is available, so for you PlayStation players out there, know that if you do get this game, you cannot play the next-gen version on your PlayStation 5. It will only be the PS4 version and back compat. The game is available for $60, or if you are a Game Pass subscriber, the download is available day one. Now, you may recall, I sat down during a preview and said, I like this game so much when I tested it out, I could have played for about 3-4 hours if I wanted to. I stopped at an hour and a half because I was really enjoying it and wanted to save myself for a month later with the final launch. So Xbox sent me a review code, big shout out to them, really appreciate it. I got a chance to play through the whole game. It took me 13 hours and there was still a lot of content left to do afterwards. What are my overall thoughts on the game? Long story short, I was very impressed. I thought maybe it would wear me down over time. It didn't. I thoroughly enjoyed Psychonauts 2. A lot. One of my favorites of the year, actually. So with that, let's get it started with the surprisingly charming story. So in my preview, I really touched on the idea that I thought the writing was witty. I thought everything about this game was clever, but it's themes that speak so deeply to me on a matter that I think is very important. Upon firing the game up, you get hit with a mental health advisory, which you can see right here. And at that moment, you know, okay, there's a strong focus here. So on the surface, while it may look psychedelic in all of the trailers, when it slows down, it delivers something that I found truly endearing. And the way that they deliver this is through fighting your demons, growing from your mistakes, facing your flaws, earning a second chance. A lot of these ideas are major pillars for the storytelling of Psychonauts. And while there are character-driven stories here that are happening in the world of Psychonauts based off its surprisingly deep lore, I found that its themes it touched on and the way they handled them was really well done. They did it delicately so, and they did it in a fun way, but it was always about taking that next step forward, about loving one another. I think a surprisingly positive story in what is otherwise a pretty dreadfully depressed industry. Essentially, the game is an artistic representation of mental health because you play as Rasputin, who is a psychonaut, and he literally dives into the brains of different people throughout the game and gives them fine-tunings and helps them figure things out. And while he's in there, you're seeing direct nods towards the certain theme that each brain is going for, whether it be something like insecurity or depression or anxiety, but it's backed up by two major pillars which make it all possible. And that's the level design and the enemies. And I just found it fascinating as I was exploring the game and I was looking around, seeing how all of the wacky art styles, the crazy drawings, the different color splashes, all that looks so weird when you're looking at them in trailers. I judged this game hard. I was like, this is like an acid trip, man. It's kind of weird. I'm not about it. But once you start to get a hold of the themes and why they are the way they are, it just connects. And then you start to see enemies like doubts in the brain of someone with low self-confidence who displays that through dialogue. And you already know, like, as a Persona fan, I love that interconnection of gameplay, theme, and story. It speaks to me deeply. It is an easy way to get some good points on my list, and this game does it excellently. And so I gotta say, those two pillars backing it up make this a real treat to continue on with the story. At the heart of the situation with the Psychonauts is that they are on the hunt for a mole within the group. Someone has betrayed them, they don't know who. It is suspected, however, that this mole will lead to the return of a dark time in the Psychonauts universe, and so time is of the essence. And once again, you jump into the shoes of Rasputin and you're like, we gotta figure this one out ASAP. And the game is surprisingly well written. Like, beyond its themes, there were a lot of laugh out loud moments, and that's really uplifted through the animation, I think. I know a lot of people said Ratchet & Clank, for example, was very Pixar-like, but I couldn't help but think of that with this game so often as well. Its animation, its acting, it was so lively and goofy, and it added so much to the script that was already there and really jumping off the paper that it combines for something much more excellent than I could have ever expected. So throughout the game, you'll be indulging in tons of side conversations. If you want to take an even deeper dive into the Psychonauts universe, there's a lot more than what meets the eye. And there's also side quests that you can do in pretty open hub areas. So it's not just a one-shot main story 3D platformer, although that's a lot of what you'll be doing, but there is more here. And that's one thing that I think will really speak to a lot of fans is the content value. There is more in this game than I thought. I know the first Psychonauts is about 8-10 hours, and this one you could easily squeeze a good 20 out of if you're really going into the side content, collecting everything. There is a lot here, and I thought it was really impressive. But with that, let's not talk too deep on the story. I think it's one of the treats of this game. Let's talk about the gameplay where we can get a little bit more in depth. The environmental design. Oh my word. Just some of them are so incredible, like a germ city that is within the head of someone running a bowling alley who is cleaning out shoes. And because they're disinfecting those shoes, like you connect it to the germs, and it's this take on post-apocalyptic germophobia. Like, it's incredible. And then there's these psychedelic concerts with all of these different colors, and there's this different art style applied to this world, and it's very trippy. It's like you're at Woodstock, you're getting in a van, you're going to different places within this hub world. I mean, the environmental design is just incredible. It always feels rich and diverse, even if sometimes you find yourself doing the same thing, a little 3D platforming, a little bit of combat, and you can get into a bit of emotion there. But it's really thanks to the diverse powers that this game has, which are melee, telekinesis, psyblast, pyro, levitation, slow motion, and plenty of others, all combined to interact with the environment as well as your enemies in unique ways, where there are certain weaknesses that I was discovering, like I could pull the weapon out of someone's hand with telekinesis and throw it at someone else because that weapon, that other enemy was weak to. And I thought that in particular was really cool gameplay power interaction. I do wish though, because in the early goings they do this and they sort of drop it, that there was more puzzles fueled by the powers. Because you'll have things like, oh, I can use my pyro ability to burn down a poster, or I can use telekinesis to lift this thing, or I can use my mental connections to zip through different clouds, and that's like the main puzzle mechanic. But beyond that, I feel like they sort of, I don't want to say dropped the ball here, but they could have done more. There was more here, and I think the game would have benefited from maybe a couple of puzzles here or there, which is a rare statement for me. But it's just that through the mental connections and the way you'd connect two ideas, and you'd have to really use your brain in a different way that only Psychonauts could have you do, I felt like there was room to try that with more powers. Of course, it's up to the game designers on how they would do that, but I just felt throughout the game that the combat wasn't the strong suit. It was really how you connected to the themes and the mind, and the puzzles helped supply that a little bit. That's not to say that combat's boring. I thought it was actually quite fun. Sometimes it can feel a little too tight, but you're switching constantly between all of your abilities because everyone's got a weakness. There's tons of enemy types, and so it's overall a really fun romp when you're getting into those extensive combat situations. You can use mental connections to pull someone and punch them, use your Psyblast to shoot a bunch of people, and that doesn't even get into the upgrades, which change your playstyle compared to mine personally. So there's this machine called the Automatic, which serves as a shop of sorts, and in there you can buy different pins, and those pins that you can attach to your character will augment certain abilities. So I had one that my Psyblast, when it hit someone, it would split off and hit nearby enemies. You can just do simple things like I up the damage on my melee attack because that was the main attack I was using, so on and so forth. But also, as you get a bunch of collectibles that we'll dive into in a second throughout the level, you'll start to rank up. As you complete missions, you'll start to rank up, and you'll earn these stars because you're an intern in the Psychonauts program, and these stars will go towards these different powers. So you'll rank them up, and they'll do various things like extensive range for your pyro powers, or more damage for melee plus a slam attack. The list goes on. And so there's a great sense of progression throughout this game, which made the many collectibles worth going out of your way for. So the most common one you'll be finding are figments. There are these colorful drawings that sort of fill out the world. You'll be picking them up because they're, once again, connected to the theme, figments of the imagination. You'll be finding baggage tags for emotional baggage. You'll be finding half-a-minds to increase your health because when you find two of them, they combine, and so you have two half-a-minds coming together. On top of that, there's also memory vaults, so you can learn more about the person's head you're in that maybe isn't directly told to the player when it comes to cutscenes and dialogue. So there's a lot there beyond those collectibles, and they were all worth going for because they connect to the gameplay cycle, but it's also just a traditional 3D platform in a lot of ways, which on the Xbox side of things, while this isn't exclusive, is something that they've just been sorely missing, is this more kid-friendly game in a couple of ways. It still tackles some pretty serious themes, but because of the gameplay and the goofiness of it, I think it can get away with, a younger audience diving into it and going, oh, what's this? But I just have to say that I was really impressed from top to bottom, and it's been a while, I feel, since I've been this wrong about a game. I look at it kind of like how I look at Ghost of Tsushima, where I was just writing it off like, all right, and you'd think I'd learn my lesson by now, and I think I have. If I'm wrong once a year, it's a pretty good ratio to have, I would say. But between the ranking up, the 3D platforming, the powers, everything in this game, the collectibles, the themes, and plus, on top of all of this, it is polished. Probably the most important point to make there. It is polished. And that doesn't even get into some of the boss fights that the game has, which wouldn't have been there if, side note, Xbox Game Studios did not get involved because they weren't going to be there. And funny enough, these are some of the best moments of the game, I think. They challenge you to use your powers in different ways. They keep you locked in and engaged. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, this is such a difference maker. So it's in one side note, an encouraging sign for Xbox Game Studios and their interactions with studios that they're acquiring, because I feel this added thing makes the game better. Just like we talked about Wasteland 3 and voice acting, it made the game better. So I don't want to act like that's going to add points to the score or anything. I'm reviewing the game as it is. But just for those of you who watch for Xbox coverage, know that this is an encouraging sign moving forward. So the question really lies with, hey, should I spend $60 on this? Should I download this on Game Pass? My answer is, for Game Pass, it's an absolute download. I really think this game is such a treat. It's striking at the right time where we haven't seen a game quite like this in a while. Of course, we have Ratchet & Clank. There are some lighthearted titles that have come out, but they're so rare because everyone's trying to tell a compelling, deep story. And this game shows that you can still do it and have fun. And I think that's a rarity that should be celebrated. Now, if we're talking for the $60 price tag, you have to get a little bit more narrowed down to your taste. Do you like 3D platforming? Do you like this wild, wacky adventure idea here? Because you're going to see some trippy ass things. Does that sound appealing to you? Does mental health speak to you as deeply as it would for someone like myself? Do you think that 20 hours of 3D platforming sounds appealing? If so, this game would be great for you, because when I was playing it, I was reminded of games like Sly Cooper, Thieves in Time, Band of Thieves, Honor Among Thieves, like those types of games. It reminded me of Battle for Bikini Bottom, where I was just collecting everything. We just played the remake of that last year, but even before then, when I was a kid, it reminded me of all of these games. And so I think that was an encouraging sign from my standpoint, where if you liked that era, like I really enjoyed that era. Do I want a renaissance of it? Tons of 3D platformers? No, but an occasional one here or there with this type of touching story, great characters, fun writing, awesome gameplay systems, I'm totally for that every now and then. And I think this one, especially in Game Pass, makes it an easy download. But when it comes to paying for it, you got to make sure that this is fitting your taste. And I just wanted to list that all out there. And this is coming from someone who never even played the first one. And I was able to grasp pretty much everything. And I thought that they did a good job catching you up. There's a recap. So I think this is an easy buy if you're into this type of game and you're looking for something a bit different. Keep in mind, it's a $60 price tag. So balance things out. Keep in mind the holiday period. But if you're an Xbox owner, this is going to be the case for a lot of games. Pocket your money, just download it, right? It's just that simple. But for PlayStation fans, if you're looking for a good 3D platformer, it's right here. So those are my thoughts on Psychonauts 2. I hope all of you enjoyed. Let me know if you have any questions about the game that I didn't get to here in this review. I try to be as thorough as possible, but it's also possible I did miss something. So let me know what you're thinking in the comments down below. I'm looking forward to reading your thoughts. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.